All right, Everett, we are actually live now. We'll give it a couple of minutes for those that are still just kind of jumping on. Tonight, we plan to talk about the legislative update for Louisiana, kind of what's been going on for the past few weeks since the session started and what's going to be going on in the future. I think there's a lot of important stuff to talk about. I am Barret Kendrick. I serve as the Vice President of the Louisiana Shooting Association. I have Everett Baudean, who's also on with us. He's on the board of the LSA. First time coming onto the board as of 2022. Welcome aboard, Everett. He's
Thank you.
certainly been a strong asset to Louisiana and to Louisiana Shooting Association. And we also have our president, Dan Zelenka, who will be chiming in and jumping on as well. Let me see if I can get him on. He may be having just a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we'll get him on here in just a couple of minutes. But thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll kind of give it a couple of minutes just before we get started to give time for people to be able to get on. Let's see here. Technical difficulties. Dan saying he did not get the invite for the link to be able to join in on video, but it just hopefully did just get that completely out to him.
These things happen.
Oh yeah. I do a live show every month as well on Facebook and YouTube under a different organization for Training Talk on personal defense. And you know, it's interesting when you do live shows because technology, right? You get so many different variables that come into play with microphones and cameras and lighting, and internet obviously, you know, is a huge one. And so there's so many different things that can go wrong. And then sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, I didn't get the invite, as we have tonight.
Yep. Barret, where is this streaming so I can share links to it?
This is streaming live on Louisiana Shooting Association's website, on Facebook. I've also got it out, I think, going on my page as well. Let me see if I can't send you the direct link that you can be able to share. I'll drop it in your text real quick.
Gotcha.
All right, you've got that going on. Let's see.
All right, cool.
See some people starting to come online. Again, welcome aboard. Tonight we'll be discussing just a quick update on the current Louisiana's legislative session. We've got some stuff obviously that has to do with firearms. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, but overall we've been moving pretty well during the legislative session. So I think it's important that members and other citizens of Louisiana stay aware, educated, and involved in what's taking place, because it all affects you in the end. All right, I just heard Dan just chimed in. Let's see, let me get him on the screen, and we'll quickly go ahead and pick things up and get started. All right, Dan, as you come on, it looks like you did unmute yourself. If you can enable the video, even better. If not, everybody else just kind of sees your name on there. Dan, can you hear me? There he is, the man with a plan. We can see you, Dan. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can, but it kind of sounds like you can't hear us. At the bottom left of your screen, no, you
There we go.
Okay, you got us now?
I do.
Awesome. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. I kind of quickly made mention of what's happening tonight, but I'm the Vice President of Louisiana Shooting Association. You've got Dan Zelenka, who serves as the President, and Everett Baudean, who was also elected to the board this year. and we just wanted to give a quick update on the 2022 legislative session, of what's been happening, what is still happening, and what's going on in the next couple of months with that session, and what you need to know about and how you can get involved on different stuff. So welcome aboard, guys. We are currently live. We're streaming out live right now via Facebook. We'll also push this out to YouTube as well later tonight for anybody that is catching up on the back side of things. But the 2022 legislative session, I don't know that we'll have time to cover everything tonight, but let's talk about some of the more important stuff. We're a few weeks in. We've had several bills at this point that have made it through committee, both on the House Committee on Administration of Criminal Justice, as well as on the Senate side with Judiciary C, right? And I can't remember if they had another committee meeting as well that took place on the Senate side. But let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the positive stuff. What are some of our plans this year with legislatively, and what do we have in the works? And Dan, I'll kind of open that up to you first, and we'll kind of come back in and discuss it just a little bit.
Okay, well, yesterday, House Bill 37, which is a constitutional carry bill, passed the House floor. I think about 67 to 27 or something to that effect. So it had pretty overwhelming support. We expect this bill to go to Senate Judiciary C, where they will have a hearing. And, if anybody wants to go up and show their support, we'd be glad to have you at the hearing. You don't have to talk. All you have to do is turn in a green card bill, and the committee will put that in the record, and it will count you being there as someone who is in support of the bill. This bill is very similar to the bill that made it to the governor's desk last year that he vetoed. Came close to a veto override on that, fell a couple of votes short. This year is the year before an election year, so who knows? Maybe if we put it back on the governor's desk, maybe he doesn't veto it, or maybe we pick up those couple of votes that we needed last year. So it's kind of exciting. It's still in play. There's a Sanctuary Sate bill that made it through off of the House floor. It's going to Senate Judiciary B, which is the committee it died in last year. There's been a change of membership on that committee that took away one of the no votes and had someone who has been a really solid yes vote. So it's possible that will make it to the Senate floor and could make it to the governor's desk. There's a training bill that will provide a resource on the state police website for people to at least kind of hear about all of the subject matters that are important to gun ownership. And Barret, I know you worked more on that bill than I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll probably back talk on some of the other bills as well. But the training bill is with Blake Miguez, and ultimately what he's trying to do is make it easier for people to be able to get the knowledge. This has nothing to do with concealed carry classes, anything like that. Ultimately, he would like to start with an online course that's roughly 2 hours long that is geared towards all the new gun owners and people who may not be interested in concealed carry, but they still want to have a firearm for self-defense, for home defense, to protect their family, their loved ones. In 2020, across the United States, there were an estimated 10 million first-time gun buyers. So his bill, I think, is excellent bill that will make it easier to be able to get the information. And some of it has to do with gun safety and reducing accidents and responsible gun ownership and preventing access, but also some basic information on the use of force and what goes into that. So I think it's a great bill, and I'm glad that he's doing it.
I think that figure by the end of 2021 has doubled. I think there may be as many as 20 million first-time gun owners. These people, a lot of them are first-time gun owners because they didn't grow up with guns. And so having a resource for them where they can get basic information very easily, I think is a plus. And I applaud Representative Miguez for bringing the bill.
Yeah, I think it's also important to have out there as a resource, as a refresher course, even for people who have had formal training. I know Barret and I are both concealed handgun instructors, and we can only hope that after the class that you only have to take once every 5 years, that everybody can retain all the information we tell them. So it's nice that they'll be able to go watch these videos, which I believe are supposed to be broken down by topic into easily digestible chunks. If they need a refresher on one particular area that they don't remember, they can just go check that out. Whereas before, all that was really available was the state police website with a very, very short summary of some of the legal issues that probably confused more people than it helped.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's moving into a great direction. And even with online learning, some people think that, have a misconception that it's difficult to learn online or that it's somehow subpar, but I believe the exact opposite. If the videos are done well, and it grabs the attention of the students, and the students have the ability to break it down into smaller chunks, exactly what they're planning to do with this, then it's easier to absorb, go back, pause, rewind, rewatch, and retain the information. Whereas when you throw somebody in a classroom, they only have so much brain capacity to absorb that information. Distractions happen. With the online content, it allows for those distractions because now you get to go back and replay it. So with House Bill 37, constitutional carry, obviously the LSA is very supportive of constitutional carry, and we're excited to be involved with helping hopefully get it back onto the governor's desk. This is Representative McCormick's bill. It was an amendment that took place in the House committee where it was bumped from having to be 18 years old up to 21 years old, but it did move out of committee very, very favorably with that amendment.
There was also an amendment on the House floor, which basically added Miguez's bill on training to the constitutional carry bill. So it didn't make it a requirement, but it added the online resource so that one way or the other, either if Miguez's bill passes, gets all the way through the process, or if McCormick's constitutional carry bill gets all the way through the process, we will get the online resource, which I was glad to see.
Let's see, what else do we have? We have the House Bill 483 by Representative Travis Johnson. And that was what, 2016, when Louisiana changed their lifetime ban on a concealed carry permit to convicted felons.
Well, basically, and people understand a little bit of the background. People who had completed who were nonviolent felons, who had completed their sentence and had gone 10 years past successful completion of sentence, would receive first offender pardon and would receive their rights back under state law. And this worked for a while, but the federal government decided really to change the rules on them and said that because they couldn't obtain a concealed carry license, that they hadn't received all of their gun rights, and therefore they received none of them. So what we did was we went in 2016 and we added some requirements. It has to be nonviolent. It has to be not a domestic violence misdemeanor. It has to be not a sexual crime. And we allowed that to be expunged. You know, we use the expungement statute. So if their crime is qualifying and they get it expunged, then they can apply for a concealed carry permit. And if they get their concealed carry permit, then they now have all of their gun rights and they're able to purchase and own a firearm under federal law. And Representative Johnson's bill reduces the 10-year period to 5 years to bring it into line with convicted nonviolent felons' restoration of rights, such as the right to vote, the right to run for public office, and a few other rights. So it basically brings gun rights in line with every other right.
And that's Everett. I mean, you teaching the concealed carry classes. Have you run into those students who want to get a concealed carry permit? They've been convicted of a felony, and that felony had absolutely nothing to do with guns or violence, but they still ran into the problems and were prevented?
I have actually had issues with that, both as a concealed carry instructor and as an attorney. I've had a student who got denied for his permit. I mean, this is not really relevant to this bill, but this just kind of shows you how important it is to continue to work on this area of law. Because I had a student who had his permit denied because of a misdemeanor conviction from 40 years ago that he forgot the details of and couldn't even get them because the records were destroyed in the 2016 floods here. And because he put on his application that he was not convicted of any crimes, they denied him, even though the crime he was convicted of had no bearing on his eligibility. Had he put on there that he had been convicted of disturbing the peace in 1980, he would have been issued the permit. But so there's still some little tricky things like this that we all have to continue working on this just to make sure people don't fall into these procedural traps. And then I've also had clients who have contacted me about being ineligible to purchase a gun under federal law, and the issues of state law and federal law not lining up exactly right is really problematic, not just in Louisiana, but everywhere else. This guy had pled guilty to a simple battery situation when he was originally arrested for domestic abuse, but it wasn't actually really a domestic abuse type situation. And so even though he pled to a simple battery, which was dismissed and set aside under Article 894, because there's one tiny little part of that article that allows it to be considered for future offenses until after this time period. And because the federal government said that you pled guilty to a crime that had the elements of a domestic violence, even though you didn't actually plead to domestic violence, they said that that still makes you a prohibited person because this one tiny little fragment of a piece of it sticking around, even if it wasn't the actual crime. So there's all these little tiny traps you can fall into where state and federal law overlap. So the more we can work to close those gaps, the better. Because people, you know, the prosecutor in this case, I talked to him and he didn't even know this was a thing if the guy pled. They were trying to make sure that he didn't lose any rights with this plea, and he still did. So he's still trying to untangle that issue. We're working on it now.
Well, the impetus for the 2016 change, there were two guys. One of them had driven his truck on a golf course when he was a teenager and was convicted for felony criminal damage to property. The other one had made a fake ID when he was a teenager and was convicted of forgery. And both of those people, the ATF was trying to do a lifetime ban, even though under state law they could own a firearm. So that's why we provided them with a path to getting their rights fully restored. You know.
Yeah. So I agree. This is a really important area of law that we've been working on, and I think the more we continue to do that, the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's definitely something we'll be working more on in the future. I mean, that's going to be most of the bigger pro moves that we're currently working on with the LSA. We do have some stuff that we have been actively working against as well. Let's see.
There's actually a couple more out there.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about some more? Let's talk about some more.
Let's
Sure.
talk about some of the things that we've already taken care of first, and then we'll talk after that about the things that are still going to pop up, if that's all right. So,
Okay, sure.
I'd like to talk briefly about Senate Bill 327, the red flag bill. I've spoken against the red flag bill now with the LSA and before with other organizations in previous years. They've tried multiple times to bring a red flag law in Louisiana. Every single time we've managed to stop it. Every single time it's had the same problem. Due process, as everyone knows, is a really big issue with anything even resembling a red flag bill. And to the credit of the lawmakers that keep introducing it, they are trying ever harder to have something that resembles due process in these bills to make it palatable, to make it not alarm the gun owners. But every single time they do it, it shows that they always suffer from the same problem. If you put in enough due process to not have a bill or a law that is only able to be abused, you've legislated the law out of existence, because all you end up with is saying if somebody does a crime, then you can use the red flag law. But if they've already done a crime, then they can just be arrested for that crime. So everything that they put in this bill, if you looked at it, whatever gave them grounds for issuance of a red flag warrant, it was two basic categories of thing. One, somebody has done credible threats or acts of violence already, in which case you can just arrest them for those things. And that solves the problem. So again, what is this law trying to address? And then the second part was people who represent a threat to themselves. But it is pretty clear that the best way to help somebody who is suffering from suicidal ideation is not to have law enforcement kick in their door, serving a warrant and taking their property away. That's not how people heal. So fortunately, the bill was defeated relatively easily. There was only one vote in favor of it in the Senate committee. And so hopefully they realize that there is no way to make these red flag laws actually work without just being an avenue for possible abuse of state power, or just people swatting one another or things like that, which is always a serious concern.
No,
add on.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, to add on to that, on Tuesday, we were up there on a bill to create a carve out of the state preemption statute for New Orleans. And the state preemption statute basically says that state law will apply to guns and gun regulations, and that local law cannot be any more stringent than the state law. And New Orleans wanted to carve out itself as basically a gun control enclave. And we defeated that 9-1 in the Criminal Justice Committee. I think about 40 people showed up against the bill, and it was dead on arrival. And this bill I have seen this bill every year since, I believe, 2016. So
yeah, I was going to say,
back up there tomorrow. Not tomorrow, next year. I mean, it's a continuing problem. So.
Absolutely. And there are so many problems with this bill like this, aside from just making it very difficult for people who are trying to follow the law in the state. going around the state, especially to places where people do want to visit, and suddenly having to learn a whole new set of laws regulating one specific city. And the laws that they would have been allowed to enact would have functionally made it impossible to carry a concealed handgun in New Orleans, because they would clearly probably try to do something where you wouldn't be able to carry a firearm wherever anyone was drinking alcohol anywhere, which is everywhere in the city of New Orleans. And because they definitely were talking during the hearings about people walking around Bourbon Street drinking alcohol and possibly carrying guns. Well, so now you're going to threaten essentially to make the street a place you can't carry a firearm. That obviously makes it impossible to carry a firearm in the city of New Orleans. It's a very walkable town, and people are always going to be drinking. And the idea during the testimony that they kept bringing up, that this was somehow even remotely calculated to handle the violent crime problems, was fairly absurd, because they leave out the fact that the vast majority of people who are committing gun crime are carrying concealed firearms with no permit. It's not people going around lawfully open carrying and then surprising everybody by the fact that they're, oh, look at me, I'm here to do a crime, I was getting away with something by open carrying. That's never been the case that I've heard of. And the people who are carrying concealed handguns with no permit, they can already be arrested for that. The new restrictions they wanted to put in wouldn't help in any way. The only thing that it would, again, the substance of all the testimony against it was that it would only affect people who are already choosing to follow the law, which is the case, of course, with most gun control. And I think almost every member of the committee saw that pretty easily. And the one thing that I wanted to say about it, but we didn't even all get a chance to speak at the hearing because there were so many people against this, is that it's really ridiculous when a city says, we have a problem, we need to do everything in our power to stop this crime problem, if those things include violations of fundamental constitutional rights. I mean, we all know, and I hope everyone out there knows, that Louisiana has the strongest state constitutional language that is possible for the right to keep and bear arms. So for New Orleans to say, oh, we just want to abridge people's fundamental constitutional rights for a crime problem is tantamount to saying, we're just not going to have the Fourth Amendment in New Orleans anymore. The crime's too bad, we don't need warrants. The crime's so bad, we don't even need reasonable suspicion. We're just going to pat down every single person in the entire city whenever we feel like it. And I think everybody who's in favor of New Orleans being allowed to regulate guns would clearly say, whoa, that's a problem. We can't let New Orleans take away people's constitutional rights against search and seizure. But that's essentially what they were trying to do with that bill.
Representative today, and I told him about your idea for testimony concerning stop and frisk in the Fourth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
He was disappointed that I had told you to stand down and not testify.
Well, I'm putting it out here. Maybe maybe we'll make a video on it or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was like you said, it was a bad bill all around, and it wasn't just geared towards firearm-free zones. I mean, they were going to, if they got their way, make it illegal to be able to manufacture or assemble a firearm, right? Meaning if it didn't come together, it would have been illegal for you to put it together. So buying different parts of guns and trying to assemble it would have been outlawed, inside the city of New Orleans, and of course, a few other things that existed in there. And so, yes, that Senate or House Bill 209 was definitely one that it was important that we were able to get it stopped. Like Dan already talked about earlier, this is not the first year. It comes every single year. And it's important that we have people there to be able to testify, and people there to be able to say no, and viewers just like y'all writing in to your representatives and senators and asking them to vote against this type of stuff.
Yeah, we can't ever give up fighting against this stuff, because, for example, no matter how strong we make our constitutional language, the strongest constitutional language in the world has never stopped people from introducing blatantly unconstitutional laws into the legislature. So those things still have to be defeated at the legislative level. Otherwise, if they pass them, then it's going to be a long, drawn-out court battle probably, and nobody wants that. That's not the way law should be made. The legislature should make law that is constitutional to start with. So that's why we all need to continue to fight for that.
Absolutely. Dan, others that you wanted to make sure we talked about tonight?
Well, there's a couple of little bills. We've been working on some knife rights bills. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, uh, switchblades were illegal to possess in Louisiana, even in a collection. And so we took away that prohibition. Last year, we drafted a bill that made it, the governor signed. It's now a law that if you have a concealed handgun permit, you're allowed to carry other dangerous weapons, which would include knives. There's a special carve out for switchblades, which this year we have a bill. It's House Bill 463. It's already been through the House committee. It passed the floor of the House 92-2 and is going to Senate Judiciary C probably at the end of the month, maybe the beginning of May, that removes that the carve out for switchblades. So switchblades will be treated like any other knife. One part of the law that was interesting was that police officers can carry concealed weapons based upon the fact that they're law enforcement, and the carve out for switchblades also applied to them. So the Sheriff's Association and the state police both agreed that the law was good, and I mean, they don't advocate, or they're not supposed to advocate, but they indicated they had no objection, and that's probably one of the reasons why the bill has sailed through.
Yeah, that's going to make it a whole lot easier for me to teach my segment on knife law when I do my law seminars too.
There you go. Last but not least, there is a hunting bill that we're supporting to add, and let me read it. Pre-charged pneumatic devices to those implements that are legal to hunt deer with. And these are basically air guns, but they're extremely powerful air guns. And all of the states around us, as well as a few dozen others, allow this. And so there were two bills filed, one of which is now on the House floor, that would allow in the list of things, as firearms, as handgun, as rifles, handguns, shotguns, bows, crossbows, and now pre-charged pneumatic devices, which will be air guns. So, I mean, we do touch on a few hunting bills every year or so. So we support the hunters, the competition shooters, concealed carriers. And, if you can do it with a gun, we support you.
Absolutely, and there's a lot that goes on that the Louisiana Shooting Association has been involved with over the years. We do have a new video kind of coming out that just talks about a couple of the worthy bills that have become law that Louisiana Shooting Association has been involved with along the way, very highly involved with along the way. And it's important that that people understand that viewers understand that. The LSA is made up of members, of membership, right? You are the LSA. We represent you when we go to places like the Capitol to testify on bills, but we're a member organization, and we want you on board just as much as I want any of the guys on the video on board, right? And so if you do have an interest in figuring out how you can get more involved, well, some of it is just simply sending emails or calling representatives and senators at different times to ask for their support. I can't tell you how many people have talked about over the years that they wish Louisiana, would move to constitutional carry or permitless carry. And, we put it on the desk last year, and fortunately got vetoed, and hopefully we'll put it back on the desk this year. But it takes people like those that are watching this video to pick up the phone or to send emails and in a kind manner, ask for the support of that kind of stuff. And it takes a lot of work to be able to make something like that happen. So at times we need to reach out, to the members to be able to ask for help on that kind of stuff, or maybe come to the Capitol to just put a card in of support, or ask the committee to vote down something, vote against something, and different things like that. So if you're not a member of the LSA, it's a small fee each year, but we do ask that you join the LSA, because we are the organization that is supporting the gun owners in the state of Louisiana for things like hunting, competitive shooting, junior shooting sports, and of course legislatively. And so I will put the link to the website in there. Hopefully you're already a member, but if not, consider joining, and please share this information with other people. As we continue to move forward in 2022 with the legislative session, we'll continue to do the live updates. Some of them we may do live from the Capitol in Baton Rouge, when it's appropriate. And if you're not getting the emails, then make sure to jump on the website to sign up to get those emails, because we do send out all of these updates, whether you're a member or not. You put in your email address, you're going to get the emails to give you all of the big updates that take place legislatively. Dan, Everett, any last thoughts on different bills that we want to make sure we discuss before we cut it for tonight?
Well, not necessarily on bills, but if you get the emails, you can you don't have to write each of your legislators. If something's in a committee, if you write to the committee secretary, she will, or he will, send your email to all of the committee members. And so it's really a single email will handle a committee hearing. Once it reaches the floor, if you just contact your own representative, that's great, or senator. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one more time, just to piggyback on what you were saying about joining the LSA, Barret. I do think it's great that people are so interested in helping out different organizations that fight for your gun rights. That being said, for anyone out there who's not a member of the LSA already, if you're anything like me, before I was a member of the LSA, I was given a lot more money to a lot of other gun groups that were doing a lot less work in Louisiana for your Louisiana specific gun rights. So if you're really passionate about Louisiana law and Louisiana becoming a great place for gun owners, the LSA is really the place you want to be.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a committee meeting that does not have a board member or somebody from the LSA that is there to represent the LSA and the members of the organization, as well as all the work that takes place beforehand, help authoring the bills and drafting them, to finding those that will sign on to them, to making a lot of the calls and emails even before they ever even hit committee. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all coming on tonight. As mentioned previously, we'll continue to do some of these legislative updates throughout this session. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video, and please share this information with others, and y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.